Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Eloisa Ramos, and we are here to study A Course in Miracles. And I'm here with my friend Connie and
Hi.
her little cat, Lulu. So let's see, we're continuing with chapter 18 of the text, The Passing of the Dream. And we
Mhm.
left off on section 8, The
Hmm.
Little Garden.
Hmm.
Okay, let me start.
It's an interesting title.
It is, yeah. Okay, paragraph 1. It is only the awareness of the body that makes love seem limited, for the body is a limit on love. The belief in limited love was its origin, and it was made to limit the unlimited. Think not that this is merely allegorical, for it was made to limit you. Can you, who see yourself within a body, know yourself as an idea? Everything you recognize, you identify with externals, something outside itself. You cannot even think of God without a body, or in some form you think you recognize. Yeah, yeah. So, uh, yes. So let's see. I mean, once we look at ideas and make ideas into things, objects, bodies, then yeah, they become limited because they're bounded. They have boundaries um, and so if we think of God, obviously, in those terms, um, and it's very common because we consider, for example, the crucifixion as uh, as God dying on the cross. At least that's the terminology that we use. So we're not really recognizing the eternal nature of spirit as what God is and what we are once we identify with the body. Uh, and then, of course, we then seem to be looking from within the body to an external world as something outside the self. So that's the perception of separation. And it's a body-body relationship. Object, subject with a gap. Yeah. Okay, number 2.
The body cannot know. And while you limit your awareness to its tiny senses, you will not see the grandeur that surrounds you. God cannot come into a body, nor can you join him there. Limits on love will always seem to shut him out and keep you apart from him. The body is a tiny fence around a little part of a glorious and complete idea. It draws a circle infinitely small around a very little segment of heaven, splintered from the whole, proclaiming that within it is your kingdom, where God can enter not.
Yeah, it's referring to the idea of a private mind. That's why it says where God can enter not. Because once we identify with a body, then we think we have a private mind with private thoughts, right? That I keep to myself or I can, express to you. But then I split the mind into public what what I go ahead and say to you, and then private what I think about you, which may not be what I say to you publicly. So then we have a split self, right? This is how we think we can be dishonest, right? Or we can be, let's see, split into two, a hypocrite,
Mm,
that's what we consider,
mm,
hypocritical, saying one
mm,
thing, doing another, or, doing opposite things. So we become split. We're inconsistent. We're not stable. Our behavior is doesn't make any sense because there's no stability.
yeah.
There's no integration.
Mm,
It's dis dissociated,
mhm.
discombobulated.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Mm,
yes, and that's
mm,
because we're perceiving ourselves as a body with a mind of its own.
mhm,
Okay.
mm,
And this is saying, well, you know, God cannot come into a body, okay, nor can you join him there. If we make the body as the holder of the mind, well, then how are we ever going to join God? Because God can't come into the body. So, and God is love. So the limits on love will always seem to shut him out and keep you
mm,
apart from him.
mm,
The body cannot know. So what it is that the senses, we consider, our body senses to be what we know as information about
mhm,
our environment, about what we think is happening in our situation. Okay. So we think that all of that is coming to us through our eyes, through our senses, and then that we're
mm,
processing that information. But
mm,
it's not like that. It's a projection of the mind, the body, the whole body, and everything that the body senses through its senses is a projection of the ego thought system of the mind.
mm,
uh, that
mm,
is that is making thoughts into images.
mhm, mm,
Yeah, so it's definitely a different way to understand um, the self. What the course is teaching is completely
mhm.
turning that idea that we're a body upside down. So
Yeah.
yeah, because we're going from little and small to infinite and eternal and absolute truth and knowledge. Okay, number 3. Within this kingdom, the ego rules and cruelly.
Mm,
Um, and to defend this little speck of dust, it bids you fight against the universe. This fragment of your mind is such a tiny part of it that could you but appreciate the whole, you would see instantly that it is like the smallest sunbeam to the sun, or like the faintest ripple on the surface of the ocean. In its amazing arrogance, this tiny sunbeam has decided it is the sun. This almost imperceptible ripple hails itself as the ocean. Think how alone and frightened is this little thought, this infinitesimal illusion, holding itself apart against the universe. The sun becomes the sunbeam's quote unquote enemy that would devour it, and the ocean terrifies the little ripple and wants to swallow it. Okay. So this is the fear of God, okay? Because once we identify ourselves basically with the body that is the kingdom of the ego, that is what the ego rules. Within this kingdom, the ego rules and cruelly, okay? So once we identify with the body, which the ego rules and cruelly, we become afraid of God, because then God would be, well, it's a good description here, right? It's the sun, and then it's compared to this little tiny thing that we think we are, a tiny sunbeam, who would just disappear in the sun. Who would that self be? In wholeness. So that's the fear. It's the fear that the ego self, as an identification with the body, of disappearing into the infinite, um, the infinite uh,
Oblivion.
well, it's not oblivion, it's reality. It's the infinite truth of love, of
Oh,
eternal
yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Mhm.
that's why 5 says, think how alone and frightened is this little
Mhm.
thought, holding
Mhm.
itself apart against the universe. So that's the belief in separation. And so it makes the sun the enemy that would devour it. You see that? So there's all this fear when you first start asking for the truth and you start on a spiritual path. That little I self shows up very terrified of letting go of that tiny identity, because that's all it thinks it is. So it would be like basically like dying. Um, rather than recognizing that what we are is eternal and can't die. So, okay, number 4.
Yet neither sun nor ocean is even aware of all this strange and meaningless activity. They merely continue, unaware that they are feared and hated by a tiny segment of themselves. Even that segment is not lost to them, for it could not survive apart from them. And what it thinks it is in no way changes its total dependence on them for its being. Its whole existence still remains in them. Without the sunbeam would be gone. The ripple without the ocean is inconceivable.
So even when we identify with the body in the ego, I mean, we're still making up an identity with the creative power that comes from the wholeness of what God is as the only source of life. So miscreation is still part of creation. So that segment, which is a false self, ego body, is not lost to God. Okay, for it could not survive apart from God. We cannot survive apart from God, whether we consider ourselves to be a body ego or not. We're still creations of God, even if we're not aware of the truth. You see what I'm saying? So the dreaming self is still part of creation, just like the sunbeam is still part of the sun and the ripple is still part of the ocean. Even if that ripple and that sunbeam perceive itself to be separate and something apart from the ocean and the sun. Yeah. Yeah, 6. Without the sun and the sunbeam, then they would be gone. The ripple without the ocean is inconceivable. We cannot exist without our source. So regardless of how we think we are or what we believe we are still creations of the source of all creation, which we call God. Okay. Number 5. Such is a strange position in which those in a world inhabited by bodies seem to be. Each body seems to house a separate mind, a disconnected thought, living alone and in no way joined to the thought by which it was created. And that's a capital T, thought. Each tiny segment seems to be self-contained, needing another for some things, but by no means totally dependent on its one creator for everything, needing the whole to give it any meaning, for by itself it does mean nothing, nor has it any life apart and by itself. Yeah, so this is basically how we perceive, how the normal everyday person perceives themselves in the world. We think that we are in a world inhabited by bodies and seem to be an individual separate body. And this body seems to have a separate mind that is a disconnected thought, living alone, and in no way joined to that one thought that created everything. So it's repeating the same thing that it said in the previous paragraph. Okay. In truth, we're totally dependent on our one creator for everything. Okay. But the tiny fragment that we seem to be as a body, we think is self-contained, and we think that we can be independent from God. And, maybe we need others here and there, but we really pride ourselves in being independent as much as we can be. So we think that we can give ourselves meaning. Okay, when all of our meaning comes from wholeness, from our true creation. And we don't have life apart from that. So it's a pretty big illusion. I mean, not big, but it's a pretty, what's the word? It's an illusion that we have considered to be reality. So it's upside down perception. Okay, number 6.
Like to the sun and ocean, yourself continues, unmindful that this tiny part regards itself as you. It is not missing. It could not exist if it were separate, nor would the whole be whole without it. It is not a separate kingdom ruled by an idea of separation from the rest, nor does a fence surround it, preventing it from joining with the rest and keeping it apart from its creator. This little aspect is no different from the whole, being continuous with it and at one with it. It leads no separate life because its life is the oneness in which its being was created.
Yeah, remember, I don't remember if it was in the previous section or where we read it, but the body doesn't exist. That's what this paragraph is saying. Okay. It seems to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it's not really there. So it's not what we are. That's why the separation never happened. And that's why number 2 says it is not missing. It could not exist if it were separate, nor would the whole be whole without it. So the whole illusion of separation is not real. So that's why nothing has changed in heaven. The kingdom of God is the way that it has always been. There was never any change to it. The tiny mad idea, when it starts out, the Course says, well, it started, this belief in separation started as a tiny mad idea that entered into heaven. Okay, well, that's part of the story. That's, a tiny mad idea could not enter into heaven because it would have to be separate from heaven. And there is no separation in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that tiny mad idea that entered into heaven is really meaningless when you really look
Yeah.
at it and what
Yeah.
it's saying.
Yeah.
Because it has no real source. How did it become separate in order to enter into heaven? It's explaining
Mm.
how the separation happened by assuming that it's already separate and entered into heaven.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's why it's insane. It's an tiny mad idea. So
But it is part of the story. Yeah.
yeah, it's a story, and the story is a
Yeah.
contradiction. So the more that we look at the error, the more we look at the story, we see that it's an error because there's total contradiction. Doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could not have happened, basically.
Yep. No crazy mad idea.
No.
It makes us think we figured it out.
Oh,
God.
well,
Talk about
it's not that
yeah.
it's that it doesn't even need to be figured out. We just need to let go of believing in it
Yeah.
because it's not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, number 7.
okay.
Do not accept this little fenced off aspect as yourself. The sun and the ocean are as nothing beside what you are. The sunbeam sparkles only in the sunlight, and the ripple dances as it rests upon the ocean. Yet in neither sun nor ocean is the power that rests in you. Would you remain within your tiny kingdom, a sorry king, a bitter ruler of all that he surveys, who looks on nothing, yet who would still die to defend it? This little self is not your kingdom. Arched high above it and surrounding it with love is the glorious whole, which offers all its happiness and deep content to every part. The little aspect that you think you set apart is no exception. Yeah, it's only because we have accepted this idea of ourselves as an ego body, personality. Yeah, that we buy into and project a world separation. It's just that one belief, that one problem. Okay, number 8.
Love knows no bodies and reaches to everything created like itself. Its total lack of limit is its meaning. It is completely impartial in its giving, encompassing only to preserve and keep complete what it would give. In your tiny kingdom, you have so little. Should it not then be there that you would call on love to enter? Look at the desert, dry and unproductive, scorched and joyless, that makes up your little kingdom, and realize the life and joy that love would bring to it from where it comes and where it would return with you. It's kind of going off in a different direction here. And I mean, just not a different direction, but all these words to say the same thing over and over.
Well, it's not easy to understand what it's saying. It has to say it in all these different ways.
This is a very creative way.
Uh-huh. I mean, all we've known is bodies. All we
Yeah,
see with the body's eyes is bodies. And this
true,
is saying
true.
love knows no bodies. What the heck? Okay. And reaches to everything created like itself, which means that it's not a body.
Mm-hmm.
Love, eternal love, creator of life is not a body.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does not create bodies. It does not make bodies. So we're not a body. We can't be a body because God is not a body and God created us. And it's unlimited. And that's the power of the mind. So we are yes, we're really making ourselves little by buying into the thought of being an ego body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, number 9. The thought of God, capital T, thought, surrounds your little kingdom, waiting at the barrier you built to come inside and shine upon the barren ground. See how life springs up everywhere. The desert becomes a garden, deep, green and deep and quiet, offering rest to those who lost their way and wander in the dust. Give them a place of refuge prepared by love for them where once a desert was. And everyone you welcome will bring love with him from heaven for you. They enter one by one into this holy place, but they will not depart as they had come alone. The love they brought with them will stay with them as it will stay with you. And under its beneficence, your little garden will expand and reach out to everyone who thirsts for living water, but has grown too weary to go on alone. Yeah, so a lot of time people refer to their situation or their experiences, my life.
Mm.
So this is saying, okay, well, your tiny little life, okay, is blocking what surrounds your tiny little kingdom, and waiting there at the barrier that we build is God, is eternal life. It's happiness, it's joy, it's abundance, it's everything. That's why it's referring to it as a life coming to a desert. See how life springs up everywhere. And so the desert becomes a garden, green and deep. And so the self becomes full of love, which it then shares and becomes a place where others can come and take refuge, and feel the love of God. That's line 5. And everyone you welcome will bring love with him from heaven for you, because remember that the mind shares or projects what is, what we believe we are. So when we open our mind to the truth of what we are is eternal love, then that is what we have to share. And therefore, that is what we would receive in return. It's a giving and receiving. because the mind becomes holy. The mind recognizes its holiness. That's line 6. They enter one by one into this holy place, but they will not depart as they had come alone. So, yeah. So it's a holy relationship or a holy instant that is shared here. Oh, I think we lost Connie. Yep.
My Zoom crashed. Can you let me back in?
Yes, of course. Okay, she's coming back on. Okay, that's fine. I thought you just left somewhere. No.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Just go away.
Okay,
I made
number
it.
10.
All
That's
right.
fine.
It made a buzz sound and then went away. All right. Go. So let's see, the last sentence. And under your little garden will expand. Okay, and reach out. All right. Go out and find them, for they bring yourself with them, and lead them gently to your quiet garden and receive their blessing there. So will it grow and stretch across the desert, leaving no lonely little kingdoms locked away from love and leaving you inside. And you will recognize yourself and see your little garden gently transformed into the kingdom of heaven with all the love of its creator shining upon it.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, so this is basically joining, joining of the mind. Go out and find them, for they bring yourself, capital S, with them, because it's a recognition that we are one self and not separate. And lead them gently to your quiet garden. I was just mentioning before that the giving is the receiving, so that's why it says here, and receive their blessing there. So we give blessing and receive blessing as we join with others that are our brothers. So they're not others. They're they're what we are. They're the same. Our one self, capital S. That's what 4 says. And you will recognize yourself, okay, in them, and see your little garden gently transformed into the kingdom of heaven, which is oneness. So sameness, with all the love of its creator shining upon it. Okay.
So that little kingdom is just really the mad idea.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. It's the belief in separation. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, 11. The holy instant is your invitation to love, to enter into your bleak and joyless kingdom, and to transform it into a garden of peace and welcome. Love's answer is inevitable. It will come because you came without the body and interposed no barriers to interfere with its glad coming. In the holy instant, you ask of love only what it offers everyone, neither less nor more. Asking for everything, you will receive it, and your shining self, capital S, will lift the tiny aspect that you tried to hide from heaven straight to heaven. No part of love calls on the whole in vain. No son of God remains outside his fatherhood. Yeah, so the holy instant is where we disidentify with the body. And so we recognize that there's no separation. We're all just one self. Okay, number 12.
Be sure of this. Love has entered your special relationship and entered fully at your weak request. You do not recognize that love has come because you have not yet let go of all the barriers you hold against your brother. And you and he will not be able to give love welcome separately. You could no more know God alone than he knows you without your brother. But together you could no more be unaware of love than love could know you not, or fail to recognize itself in you. Mm.
Yes, so it's a problem of recognition because love has entered, because that's all that is real. But we do not recognize that that love because we have not let go of all of our grievances or barriers that we hold against our brother. And so that's the work that we continue to do, which is to practice forgiveness, because that's the letting go of those barriers so we can recognize the truth, that love is the only reality there is, and that's what we are. That's how we were created. Yeah, and that's why, and we can recognize that, believing that we're different or that others are different, or that, because that implies separation. So 3 is, and you and he will not be able to give love welcome separately. So it's not until we recognize oneness and that giving is receiving, that we're able to welcome love in and fully recognize that it's there in our mind and has always been there.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Okay, number 13. You have reached the end of an ancient journey, not realizing yet that it is over. You are still worn and tired, and the desert's dust still seems to cloud your eyes and keep you sightless. Yet he whom you welcome has come to you and would welcome you. He has waited long to give you this. Receive it now of him, for he would have you know him. And those are all capital H's there.
Mm-hmm.
Only a little wall of dust still stands between you and your brother. Blow on it lightly and with happy laughter, and it will fall away.
Mm.
And walk into the garden love has prepared for both of you.
Mm. Wow, makes it
Yeah,
sound so simple.
sounds so simple. Yeah, and wonderful.
Just blow the dust away.
Yes, so we've reached the end of an ancient journey, not realizing yet that it is over. So time is over and done with, but we have not realized that yet. Yes, but yes, but
Yeah.
it's just a little wall of dust. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that concludes this section. Anything, Connie, before we stop?
No, just the little garden.
Yeah, very lovely. So I think we have one other section in this chapter, and then we'll continue with the next one.
Oh, a new section.
Yeah, it's just one last section. The
Uh-huh.
two worlds.
Uh-huh. And then, yeah, cool.
And we'll go on to chapter 19.
Hmm.
So yeah, so this chapter is the passing of the dream. So let's see. And the next one is the attainment of peace.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So
All
thank
right.
you for joining.
Thank you.
And we'll see you
Until
next
next time.
Okay.
Okay.